The next item then would be a report on the Tomah Area School District Library Services. And I know, Mrs. Zardi, you've given us some history of that as background. I know in talking to library staff, we thought maybe it would be helpful to sort of get a sense of what we've had in the past, what we can do in the future, what the libraries do beyond just the book part of things. And so we've invited the librarians to come and sort of give us a little bit of background. And Mrs. Zardi, I don't know if you wanted to introduce this in any way.
Well, I'll introduce Stephanie Knepkers here along with Cindy Downing, and there are currently our two elementary LMC directors, and I'll just turn it over to them. They wanted to present.
Best place for me. Okay, all right. Well, good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for having us attend the July meeting tonight. And what we are going to do is take you through a little synopsis of what we do in our jobs. Let's stand back here so I can see too. Tonight I have some information and reports on who we are and what we do to serve the students and teaching staff of our district. Some data and statistics from the past school year, and what lies ahead in the Tomah Area School District Library Media Program. To start with who we are, there are currently 3 members of our library media team. This is Vicki Harmon, who is not here this evening because she and her children are actually staying down in Chicago this summer with her husband, who is stationed down there with the Army, and he will be retiring at the end of this year. So he's kind of on his last leg of his Army career. So she was not able to be with us, but she has taught at the middle school and also with the Talented and Gifted programs before coming to Tomah, and she's been in the Library Media Center for the past 4 years. The first year she was here, she was solely at the middle school, and then when our high school librarian retired, then Mrs. Harmon took over the high school as well as the library here at Robert Cooper Learning Center. This is Cindy Downing, who is accompanying me tonight. She has taught Title I, kindergarten, 1st grade, and 3rd grade for a combined career of 24 years in the classroom, and then the past 7 years she's been in the Library Media Center at Lemonwire and Wyville schools. Myself, Stephanie Knepkers, I know many of you from school, from the community, from lots of different things. I was a 3rd grade teacher here in the district for 8 years, and now I've been in the Library Media Center at LaGrange and Warrens for the past 11 school years. And this past year, we were very, very fortunate to have Mrs. Lena Chafee join our team. After she retired from being a 2nd grade teacher for 32 years, she was able to step in when the librarian at Miller, Camp Douglas, and Oakdale left to take a job closer to home. So we really appreciate Lena doing that. She did a wonderful job, and she was just a great addition to our team. What we do, and I have too many things to remember, so I'm going to read this, if that's okay. Librarian, library media director, library media specialist, teacher librarian. All of these titles can be attached to the service we provide to the patrons of our school district. And a typical day in our profession is really divided into 2 parts: collection development and facilitation of student learning. Collection development is the continual process of weeding, ordering, cataloging, and replacing as needed the various types of materials housed in the library for use by students and staff members. Collection development is most efficiently accomplished during larger chunks of time because we each work with multiple buildings and due to the need for research in dealing with factors such as price, quality, usefulness, readability, durability, and curricular strength. What all this really means is that the library media directors require time to effectively acquire materials for each of their schools' library media centers. And as with so many aspects in the world of education, the more experience one has with this, the better job he or she does. Another major component of the workday of a library media director is that we are each facilitators of student learning. As you see in this slide, Our focus is not just checking in and checking out books. We provide a variety of services to our students and teaching colleagues that are very well integrated into their educational success. Some of you may have realized on the previous slides about each of us that we were all classroom teachers for several years before becoming library teachers. This classroom experience is one of our main assets because we know how to work with students, we know what teachers need for support, and we understand that a school should be viewed as a community of learners for both children and adults. Next, I have a table showing a snapshot of the traffic in each school library from this past school year. I'm not going to take time to go through each individual cell because later I'll be giving each of you a copy of this table. But one observation I will point out to you is that in comparing the data, we found it very positive that all three of the larger elementary schools show very similar results with regard to collection size and number of circulations, as do the four smaller elementary schools amongst their statistics. Now this shows to us that all of the directors of the elementary libraries are really working well together and on the same page to create welcoming working centers for students and teachers. Lastly, in this table of information, we found it very fascinating to look at the number of accelerated reader tests that were taken this past year. The AR program is not intended to be the reading program, but for use as a tool within the reading curriculum. And this AR tool is used by teachers, parents, and students themselves to see what they've read, how much they've read, how they've comprehended the basic aspects of the story or information. And oftentimes, AR can be a motivator for students to work to improve their reading level. So with over 35,000 AR tests taken this last year, it really makes a statement as to how the teacher librarians are a connection and a major factor in helping students find good fit books and keep reading. And this next one, what lies ahead? This fall, as we head down the road into the 2013-2014 school year, the configuration proposed by the administration is as follows: that Tomah High School, Tomah Middle School, and the Robert Cooper Learning Center will remain unchanged with Vicki Harmon as the director of the libraries in these buildings. The 7 elementary buildings, however, will go from being served by 3 teacher librarians down to being served by 2. Now, additional aid time has been proposed, and those assistants will teach kindergarten classes through the entire school year, and at the end of the first quarter and at the end of the first semester, then handle the 5th and 4th grade classes respectively, as students choose books, check out, and read to self. Unfortunately, with only 2 teacher librarians spread among 7 buildings, more of our time will need to be put toward materials acquisition and collection development, and less of our time will be able to be spent teaching and working with students. Now, there's no way to know for sure, but in the future, if the trend continues of balancing the district's budget primarily through attrition, when one of us at the elementary level leaves the district due to retirement or change of job, more than likely the one remaining will basically have no contact with students. It would be impossible for one librarian to cover and teach weekly classes at 7 elementary buildings spread so widely throughout our school district. Therefore, what could likely happen is that all the lessons would be taught by library aides, and the library media director would be creating lesson plans for and observing the aides on a rotating basis, since the bulk of time will need to be spent on materials acquisition for 7 buildings. Now, hopefully this will never come to be, but by moving forward with the proposed configuration for the upcoming school year, this could be one step closer to what I just described. After we were informed this spring that Cindy Downing and I would be working among the 7 elementary buildings, the statement was made to us that Vicki Harmon has 3 schools, the high school, middle school, and Robert Cooper, and she makes it work, which she does. However, when looking at those schools compared to the elementary schools, it's obvious that we're looking at 2 different worlds and we're not comparing apples to apples. So I ask you this: by taking away a teaching position at the elementary library, is this decision best practice for our mission of student learning? Does it support a professional learning community? And does it make you, as members of our Tomah community, feel secure that our district is making sound decisions for best learning environment, opportunity, and foundation for those such as your kids, your grandkids, your neighbor kids, your future medical caregivers, and others who will be the next generation of leaders in this community. Our district's mission is student learning, which in short range affects our test scores and in long range plays a huge factor in how our students affect society. As a teacher myself, a taxpayer, and a parent of school-aged children in the Tomah Area School District, I trust that this tough budget situation is not being used as a convenient excuse for altering programs that are vital to helping all of us create independent, lifelong learners who will also become positive, contributing members of society in their adult lives. By this, I raise questions as to whether the decision to reduce an elementary library teaching position was truly thought out and discussed as to the short-range and long-range effects on student learning. Was it based purely upon a spreadsheet of dollar figures? What non-curricular or extracurricular district-funded areas were also studied as possible budget solutions? Now, you probably realize by now from the information shared with you and the questions raised and the discussions that I know many of you have had with our team and other parents in the district, we are not in favor of reducing the number of library media directors at the elementary level. Our recommendations would be, at a minimum, to keep a third part-time director to solely cover one of the larger in-town elementary schools. But ultimately, the right decision would be to continue utilizing 3 full-time library directors at the elementary level in order to best work toward our district's mission of student learning. If more and more is taken away at the elementary level, that goal will be even more difficult to achieve than it is now. At this time, I would like to share with each of you our list of what is involved with teaching at the elementary library. The table we presented in an earlier slide showing the past year's library statistics and a Wisconsin study results page from the DPI on student learning through Wisconsin school libraries is included. Now, I don't expect you to delve into this right now, but our team certainly hopes that you'll take time to examine the information when you have a few minutes to sit outside, relax, and enjoy the summer weather. At this time, I'd also like to open the floor to any of you that have questions.
I don't have any questions. I just have a couple of comments in support of Mrs. Knepker. I feel that the library, in trying to budget out our year, that the library in the last few years has taken quite a hit. And also that, I'm all for technology. It's great. But the more technology we use, we lose the one-on-one with the librarian, the aide, and the child. So that's all I have to say.
What would be the difference between you said at a minimum, a half-time director as opposed to the proposed aide? What would be the difference in their responsibilities or what they could accomplish?
Nothing. If we could hire someone, they don't even have to be a certified library media specialist, but being a teacher, having classroom experience at the elementary level is, like I said, really the biggest asset. So if that person could handle, let's say, Miller, and do the classes, do the book acquisitions, the collection management and things like that at a 50 or 60% amount of time, that would be a great benefit.
Yeah, I guess the proposal was for an aide. I don't know if their qualifications are different than what you're suggesting.
So you're wondering, with an aide, what would the difference be? Just that they don't have the training that a teacher has, and yes, they can follow a lesson plan, but they aren't going to be the ones to do the book acquisitions, cataloging, things like that.
Okay.
Can you describe a little more in depth your one-on-one interactions with the students at the elementary level?
Yes, yep. We, there are various times throughout the day that things like that happen. When a class is in the library, for instance, for a scheduled time, we do a lesson depending on the grade level, depending on the curriculum that we have per grade level. But then when they are looking for books, okay, we get to know those students personally. We form relationships with those students because we are seeing them face to face each week. And at least once when they are in class for library, we're helping them if they're a reluctant reader. We are working to get them motivated. If they are readers that are above and beyond, what maybe kind of more the average students readers would be at that level, we are helping them find books.
And the lesson you do with the class, is that based on knowledge about how to find books in the library? I mean, are you gearing it on that or just on books?
There's many, many different things. We talk about, and a lot of those are on that top sheet that we handed out in the packet. We do online safety, we do the online catalog, we still do the Dewey Decimal System because while we have libraries, the kids need to know how to use them, and our job is to get them independent as much as they can, so when they do go to the middle school and high school, they have those skills to help themselves.
And how often does each class come to the library typically?
Once a week.
Every class?
For a half hour. So that means our lessons are only about 12 minutes.
Okay.
Because they have to have in that half hour time for a lesson and then also time for their choosing books, checking out, read to self time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, but just to add that we don't just see them that half hour each week.
Okay.
With the AR system and everything, we might see a child every day. They're really involved in reading, and they come and see us every day, and that's in between the time that we might be teaching a lesson or having a class. And I guess that's the time that I get to know kids even more. They're just in there to get a book. We're not putting any pressure on them. We're not giving them assignments. We're not testing them ourselves, and we're their coach to get them to find that book or to get them to take that test and help them through it. If it's a first grader who's having a hard time even logging in their name, we're that person that helps them with that too, along with our aides. But with the two of us there, sometimes it's constant. We might see 60 extra kids a day just for the AR enrollment.
Okay.
Because when they finish a book, then they need another one.
All right, so in closing, before I turn the agenda back over to the next item, we'd like to thank all of you as Board of Education members and all of you as administrators for the work that you do and for letting us be part of things this evening. We realize it's been a lot to absorb in a short amount of time, so if you think of any other questions that you have as you're reflecting on things and looking through the information we've given you, don't hesitate to call. We would also like to remind each of you that you are always invited and you're encouraged to stop into our schools and our libraries throughout the upcoming school year. And in the words of former Education Commissioner Harold Howell, what a school thinks about its library is a measure of what it feels about education. So thank you.
Thanks for coming. I appreciate you advocating for that position and what you do for the students. It's important for us to know in making these decisions. Thanks for the background.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if you would like any rebuttal or response to some of the points made, but I guess there's a few things that I would like to point out. Initially when we did not rehire a third LMC director, I think it needs to be noted that we could not find a qualified individual. So this is another one of those fields where there is a shortage. A master's degree is required by the Department of Public Instruction to run a school library. And many school districts around the state have opted to hire one person with a master's degree to do the type of work that's required so that they have that LMC director, but then support their libraries with a different level of personnel. So it's not an uncommon practice to be doing this. We've talked, you know, we really do value the work that our LMC directors do. We are faced with tough financial decisions. And one of the things that we continue to look at is, are there different pathways, are there ways to continue to provide the services to students using different personnel that maybe are not as costly. And we've talked in the past about when, you know, there was a time when you went to the dentist, that's the only person you saw, the dentist. And today we understand that you may deal with a dental hygienist, then you may be dealing with a dental assistant before you even need the dentist. And in some way, we have to look at that model in education. Are there ways to have graduated or different levels of expertise that we can put in place to be working with students? And does an LMC director have to be the person who is working directly with students? I know that Rosie Drager, who is our aide at Tomah High School, does a phenomenal job and makes some wonderful connections with kids, and kids are in there talking to her about books, and the same is true of Ann Markwart, who is at the middle school. So the aide that you place into the library is a critical position. You've got to have the right person doing that particular job. But I think, you know, Stephanie, you'd probably say that Peg Brennicky was phenomenal, you know, and she's an aide who worked at LaGrange for many years. So, you know, this is not something that if in the perfect world we would choose to do, but given decisions that we're forced to make, these are some of the tough choices. We know that kids need to get into the library. We want to continue to be pushing books in and out of those facilities as quickly as possible, getting that turnover, because we know the more that kids read, the smarter they're going to be. And we believe that, you know, we can accommodate that by trying some different personnel in those positions. So.
Well, I appreciate that perspective. I appreciate the presentation, because I know I've been at the middle school some. We're doing some tutoring there, and we did it at the library, and I had firsthand observation of these kids really opened up when they come into the library. It's an open space, it's a little more freedom, they like being there, and I saw firsthand again that the directors were teachers. I mean, they were doing lessons with the students, so they are a special place, I agree, and so I appreciate the perspective. Thank you. Anything else on this before we move on? Okay, thank you.